questions. Maybe something you thought of in the break. We can do one more question. Okay. Just to reiterate, I said in the beginning, but I'll say it again, is, all of this is for you to reflect on, right? And, when we're reflecting, what we recommend from a Buddhist tradition is like in an unbiased way, meaning like we're like skeptical in a healthy way of these topics that I'm talking about coming from Buddhist philosophy, but also we're skeptical of our own beliefs. So we kind of have to be a little bit skeptical of both. And what that produces is like a kind of rubbing that then produces intelligence and wisdom. So it's really important. I mean, that's why this is quite different than like a path of, blind belief or, maybe even blind rejection, we actually get to learn about our biases that way more too. So for me, I really consider these teachings more of like questions rather than beliefs. They're more like, we can even frame the Four Noble Truths. Are these three levels of suffering? And we're exploring that question. Are the causes afflictive emotions and karma? And we're exploring that question. Can they be eliminated? I mean, that's a big question, not easily answerable. So I just want to reinforce that, to keep the spirit of questioning and introspection going. Yeah. Today, and also, of course, just what you take away from it. So going into the path now, specifically the path of meditation. So we talked a lot about the view, both from sort of the good news that we have this underlying Buddha nature that's there. It's right there right now, by the way, from a Buddhist perspective. It's not somewhere else. It's not in heaven. It's not, in, I don't know, some island in the Caribbean, like whatever you think of as a beautiful vacation. It's not in someone else. It's not in the Buddha. It's you. I mean, the Buddha has it too, but you have it. So this is the good news. The bad news is what we started to describe in the last part of our session. All of the stuff that's getting in the way of being that Buddha nature. And that's what the Four Noble Truths are pointing out, or the first two are pointing out, right? So we have to work with that junk. If we don't work with the junk, we don't bring out the nature. So we have to do something, right? So the Buddha used many examples like this. It's like within a rock is gold, but we have to do something to separate the gold from the rock. But the gold was never the rock. The gold was always gold, but we have to do something to separate it. Another example they like to use in Tibet is like producing butter from milk. So you need to churn the milk in order to produce the butter. Or now I don't know what they do, but in Tibet they had a big stick and would do this, So these kinds of examples start to help us understand we have to do something. But if we don't have a view we're getting used to, we're just running in the dark, We're chasing in the dark. We don't have any aim. So this is all about where are we going to take aim? And when we sit down to meditate, yes, it's important to reflect on this view, but when we sit down to meditate, you don't have to be thinking about this view the whole time. You just have to know what you're doing and set out on your course in the meditation, right? So I'll pull up a few slides now. So I don't know if someone can give me permission to share my screen. I don't know who's the host here. It's there? Yeah? Okay. Sharing screen. Okay, just give me one moment. Okay. So I can't see you, but hopefully you can see me. Can you see me, Paulina? Okay, and you can see the slides too? Okay, perfect. I don't know how to do this to keep the slides and my video. So it'll just have to be like that. Okay. So, getting to the essence of Buddhist meditation based on all this stuff I just told you. So, Mingyur Rinpoche, meditation as a mind activity. Everywhere the mind goes, the opportunity for meditation exists. So, this is a quote from a great Tibetan Buddhist master named Mingyur Rinpoche, who you can meet. He's young, he's vital, he's alive. He has really good books and really good programs on his Tergar, his organization. But anyways, this quote really points out what I was pointing out a few minutes ago, which is that we take mind as primary here, getting to know the mind. And that's what Buddhist meditation is all about, getting to know our mind for these reasons I talked about. And to simplify all of that, getting to know the mind and how we cause our suffering, how we can relieve that suffering, and how we can eliminate it, which we call, eliminating it means awakened, means Buddha, right? You're a Buddha at that point. So everywhere the mind goes, we have the opportunity to practice meditation. That's really the perspective. Of course, we have formal practice on the cushion, which I'll talk about, but we also have informal practice. So the Sanskrit word for meditation is dhyana. And dhyana actually isn't just a Buddhist term. In Hinduism, they also use that word. A lot of Eastern meditation traditions. So dhyana meditation means to familiarize the mind with something virtuous. This is how we define it in Buddhism, familiarizing the mind with something virtuous, or at least neutral. So then we have different kinds of dhyana, or familiarizing the mind. One type is reflective meditation. Then we have calm abiding meditation. And then we have insight meditation. I'll briefly explain these three, but basically all meditative stabilizations in Buddhism fall within either the category of calm abiding or insight meditation. And I'll define those. Reflective meditation, we would say, falls a little bit more into the category of insight meditation, but this is like, for instance, reflective meditation would be a little more analytical, like the question that came before the break of, how can we say that moment of relief when we sit after walking or standing for a long time is in the nature of suffering. This would be like more of, you can do an analytical meditation of that. Like I said, you're kind of you're thinking in your mind reflectively of, the moments of that, and the that it doesn't get, more comfortable sitting and actually brings suffering in the body, and also agitation. We want to move in the mind. And then we can just do more of an experiential reflective meditation, where we're just sitting in the chair, and we're just, noticing the sensations arising in the body, noticing the change from something pleasant to something unpleasant to something neutral. So these are all within kind of reflective meditation. Now, calm abiding meditation, we usually use the word in Sanskrit, we use the word shamatha, which you're going to see in a moment, shamatha or shamatha. And we translate this as calm abiding meditation, but it can also be translated as meditative awareness. I like that translation. And then we have insight meditation, which is translated as vipassana. So that's the Sanskrit word for insight meditation. Now, there's many styles of shamatha in Buddhism. Shamatha is also not just Buddhist. They have it in the Hindu, Vedic, tantric traditions in Hinduism. Also, I think in Christianity, there's some forms of shamatha. There's definitely forms in Sufism. And so there's lots of, and in indigenous traditions. I spent a little bit of time with the indigenous traditions of Northern Colombia, in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, and the Kogi, Arhuaco, Wiwa, and then there's one more group. They have kind of a practice of poporo, where you have like a gourd, and then they have coca leaves in their mouth, and they take shells, and with the spit and all the mixture of that, they build this gourd, and it's a practice of concentration. So I would say, also they're offering kind of pagamento with their thoughts. They're making an offering. But I would say this has kind of a quality of shamatha. So even within some indigenous traditions, I've seen they have these practices. And I'm sure in Peru and in other countries as well. So calm abiding is, probably you're most familiar with this meditation because mindfulness has been derived from calm abiding meditation. Mindfulness can also be a little bit of vipassana, but in a sense, it's any practice of meditation where we're learning to train the mind to be aware and stable in the present moment. That's really what a calm abiding practice is. But we'll go into more detail in a second. Insight meditation, and the same goes for vipassana. There's many types of vipassana or insight meditation. A lot of people, when I use the word vipassana, they they think of the 10-day Goenka retreat because they call that vipassana, and it's this Pali word, vipassana. But actually, that's just one style of vipassana practice coming from the Theravada tradition. But there's many styles, there's many methods, many different things. So I don't want to confuse you, but I just want to introduce that there's many ways to do this. But basically, a vipassana meditation comes about when we've gained some stability in shamatha or calm abiding meditation, and we're able to be in the present moment, aware of the present moment, and some stability of that without constantly being distracted by our thoughts. Then we can start to look into the nature of thoughts. We can start to look into the nature of our experience, the nature of the world, the nature of mind, the nature of phenomena. And we're trying to see actually how do things exist. And that's what insight meditation is. That's what vipassana is. How do things exist, right? That's what we're investigating. We were doing a little bit of that, meaning we were talking about that a little bit in some of the Q&A. How do emotions exist? What's their nature? All of these kinds of things. So shamatha or calm abiding meditation, like I said, is a practice for training the mind to be aware and present. So you're going to be familiar with that just from secular mindfulness practice. So independent upon the cultivation of calm abiding, afflictive emotions become weaker and the strength of awareness becomes stronger. So again, like we were getting to in the Q&A, in the beginning of our practice in Buddhism, we are trying to weaken the strength, or we could say like we're trying to weaken our clinging to our afflictive emotions, right? So what this means is we start to gain a little bit of space. So rather than becoming angry, we see anger and we're able to make a choice around there. So Felipe was kind of also talking around that, where someone who's very skillful could actually choose to use their anger or the energy from the anger once they have some skill with that, without actually acting on the anger. That's a little more advanced, but nonetheless, the point here is to get a little bit of space. So, it can look like they're getting weaker or thoughts are, becoming less, but actually what's happening is the strength of awareness is just becoming stronger. So what we're doing in calm abiding is essentially suppressing the afflictive emotions and thoughts a little bit in order to get more space. And this is why when we meditate, we feel more peace. We feel more peaceful because temporarily we've suppressed our experience. Now, I hope you're seeing by now, that's not the end result of Buddhism. That's just the preliminary. It's like, this is what we first do to get some space. Because if we jump into vipassana of understanding their nature, which is truly how we eliminate this dualistic relationship that causes suffering, a dualistic relationship to our thoughts and emotions that causes suffering, we're not able to do vipassana well unless we have some stability in calm abiding meditation. So like it says there, it's necessary to cultivate calm abiding as a prerequisite for insight meditation. And that's the reason, because if the mind is just a monkey mind jumping all over the place, following every thought, becoming every emotion, we're never going to be able to see that emotion actually is illusion-like and doesn't exist in the way it appears. It exists, it's happening, but we have to question, is it like that? Is that how reality is? And we won't have the wherewithal or the muscle to do that unless we have sufficient calm abiding practice. And this is really the Sutrayana approach in Buddhism. So in calm abiding practice, first our minds are held to something external, beginning with something impure, such as a pebble or a piece of wood. So some traditions, they actually use an object outside of themselves to sort of look at and stabilize the concentration or awareness there. But of course, most of you are going to have probably been introduced to the breath as an object. So this would also be considered, one of these impure, sorry, not impure, but like a neutral object. The breath is not good or bad, it's just there. And so we use that as an anchor for our awareness. So then here, after we've worked with this, for a Buddhist, they might work with the breath, or in the Mahayana traditions, we might visualize the Buddha or put a statue in front of us and kind of watch the Buddha. That's what the second point is saying. And then holding that internally, then we might visualize it or whatever, or work with the breath. So there's many different objects. So the point here, what this is pointing out, these bullet points here, there's many different objects we can use to train the awareness. That's not the important part. The important part is that we train the awareness. Now, Buddhism has different approaches, sometimes looking at a statue or visualizing the Buddha, or working with the breath, depending on the tradition of Buddhism. But either way, the point is to settle the monkey mind and be able to remain aware of the present moment, gain a little bit of space. That's the point. So in general, the advice is, if you look at that fourth bullet point there, when meditating, we shouldn't follow a thought about the past or anticipate one in the future, and we should not be involved with thoughts of the present. So what this means is we're basically training in non-distraction. So the mind's like relative nature, we could say our habit is to be distracted, meaning we're constantly caught up in our thinking mind, right? Running. So the practice here is to notice that and to come back. And the more we recognize the thinking, the more we cultivate its antithesis, which is awareness. And it's not that thinking is bad. We need thinking, right? We need the thinking. But when we're constantly led around by our thoughts without any control, this is a state of suffering and a state of confusion where we can't move forward in our growth. So really here, it's advice for how we should work with our thoughts. If there's a thought about the past, recognize, come back to your object of meditation, your anchor. You're going to be familiar with this from mindfulness practice. If there's a thought of the future, same thing. Same with thoughts of the present, right? But we're not pushing away thoughts. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So meditation is simply leaving things just as they are without being too relaxed or too tense. If we manage to do this, we will find that the mind calms down quite naturally by itself. So then traditionally, there's some causes that we bring into our practice in order to enhance calm abiding. So this is where this is different than mindfulness practice. Faith, this is basically a strength of heart, like having studied the teachings enough, we know what we're doing. And so we have conviction. A conducive environment, this is usually an environment that's quiet. And for a beginner, it's really important. It's quiet and peaceful. We can feel relaxed and safe there. Few desires, like we're not thinking, constantly smelling delicious food or something like that. And we also surround ourselves with less things. And this helps the mind to settle because it's the desiring, clinging mind that also stirs up thinking. So again, it's not bad. It's just as a beginner, we're trying to increase our chances for successful practice. Ultimately, we should be able to engage the world in whatever way we want and not lose our awareness. But in the beginning, that's very difficult. So contentment is the next one. Few activities, like not going here and there. And ethical conduct, like not, harming ourselves or others, right? So then in shamatha, we traditionally have obstacles that come up. Mainly these obstacles are laxity and excitement. So laxity is when the mind becomes dull. Probably some of you know this well. I also know it well. We're trying to stay in the present moment and then we become a little sleepy or hazy or heavy. This is called laxity. And then excitement, when just we're trying to settle, but the mind just won't stop. It just runs and runs and runs. This is a form of excitement. Also, agitation in the body, anxiety is also a form of excitement. So these are very traditional ways presented here on how we remedy them. So for laxity, discrimination of appearances, like uplifting the mind, which means like kind of becoming clear it's like, I don't know how to say, discrimination of appearances is really just creating more clarity. Is really what it means, like more clarity in the way the mind is perceiving, more vividness in our experience. And then remedying excitement through reflecting on impermanence, etc. But really, this is all about either uplifting the mind if the mind is lax, or relaxing the mind and body if it's excited. For me personally, if I'm experiencing a lot of agitation or excitement in the practice, just tuning into a neutral place in my body, like the abdomen or feet, like we did in the beginning of today, can be really helpful. Just bringing the energy down. And if it's lax, often for me, opening the eyes and raising the gaze works the best. Or if the room is too hot, or I just ate a heavy meal, augmenting that a little bit. But of course, the first bullet point applies for a Buddhist practitioner, where we study the good qualities of meditative stabilization. We study why we're doing it, and so that conviction helps to, like, we get it's not excitement. It's like we get strength and courage to move through the obstacles, because we know what we're doing is positive and beneficial. Just like anything we do in our life. So I won't kind of go into this too much, but these are traditionally what we presented, the 6 types of faults. But generally, laxing in excitement is what, as a beginner, is what we're going to be working with. And beginner, I mean from no meditation to not being able to stabilize awareness. I consider that beginner. So that means, like, there's no amount of years that makes you a beginner or not. It's just how your practice is. And then I'm not going to go into this, but basically there are these 9 stages of resting the mind, and this is the path we kind of grow into as we practice shamatha or calm abiding. And these are increasing stages of being able to rest in the present moment. And this is very detailed and quite descript in the text, so it's not vague. And this is important too. So we actually study this, and we kind of are clear where we're at. Stage 1, just being resting the mind, focusing the mind on an object, basically just starting meditation. Stage 2, maintaining that continuity. Stage 3, resettling the mind, which means whenever one forgets the object and becomes distracted, one resettles. So, a lot of us are already around stage 3, right? Maybe even a little stage 4. And then, of course, then it gets deeper and deeper until we attain the 9th stage, which is complete pliancy of body and mind. So this is when a meditator is able to place their attention, awareness, or concentration on anything, and it doesn't move. And actually, it doesn't move at all for days. So this is when you hear more miraculous things, like Hindu or Buddhist meditators who can stay in meditation without sleeping for days at a time. It's because their mind and body has become pliable. Their body no longer has pain when it's meditating. So this is like a physiological thing they're studying in some labs now. So I'm curious if they are able to study that phenomena of a meditator able to enter meditation for several days at a time. I'm curious what they notice in the brain and body. But already they have a lot of studies of very deep meditators in like a period of meditation, but I'm not sure they've studied someone with this level of experience. So again, this is where it's going, but obviously this is, can seem far away for most of us, but with practice, it can happen. Whoops. So this is the, well, let me do it. Oh yeah. So this is a typical Tibetan painting depicting these 9 stages. So you can Google this, the 9 stages of calm abiding image or picture. So it starts like this. It's kind of comical. It starts with a monk with his mind running away. This represents his mind. The elephant has significance, and the monkey also has significance. And so it starts just completely out of control, and I think a lot of us can relate to this. And then slowly, a little more ability in meditation. You can see the white on the elephant's head. Then, he's got a little rope around it. And then it gets more and more until, the monkey is actually behind. The monk is leading, meaning we're leading the show. And then finally the monkey is like, please, please, let me go with you. And then the monkey kind of, completely, this can, sometimes the language can be a little tricky because it can seem like we're subduing something. I don't view it like that personally. I don't think it's that healthy to create a war with our thinking mind, but nonetheless, it is like that. It's like the thinking mind is the delusion, like the way we're attached to it, the way we're conditioned to it. So, it does release after a while. Anyways, so then it goes until, complete, and you fly. No, I'm joking. Well, sort of. So, where are we? Okay. So then we have, another way to relate to this is these 5 experiences, but I don't want to get bogged down here. So let's do a little practice together. So when we're meditating on calm abiding, we have this 7-point posture. And basically, if you can sit on the ground and it's comfortable for your body, if not, you can sit in a chair. We generally place our legs in full or half lotus posture, though I like a posture where kind of one leg, my right is in front of the left, or vice versa. But I don't recommend sitting like with one leg on top of the other. This can cut your circulation off. And for most of us, we're going to need something under our seat to kind of prop our hips forward, right? Probably you're all aware of this by now. From there, the hands can be on the lap, on the knees, or this is a mudra of meditative awareness, and we place this at our navel area with the thumbs gently touching. And this helps to create the rest of the posture, which is the shoulders spread. With our gaze, the chin is slightly tucked, our eyes are half or fully open, and we're gazing just out and down. We're not staring at anything unless we're using an object we're looking at as our anchor for practice. The tongue is placed on the top of the palate, like that. And the breath just comes gently and naturally in and out of the nose. That's pretty much the posture, straight back, right? It's probably the most important aspect. So once we've formed our posture of meditation, we're in an environment that's conducive to practice. All those other things, we're content, etc. But again, if we wait till we're content to practice, we might never practice, so we have to do something. And then we cultivate our intention, and the intention is in line with what we started this session with, an intention of compassion and warmth towards ourselves and others. And for a Mahayana Buddhist, they also include bodhicitta, which is the wish to attain awakening in order to bring all sentient beings to that awakening, their own awakening. And so this would become the intention. I'm meditating for this reason. But of course, this includes all of the view we've been talking about. It's also the intention to understand the nature of suffering and to eliminate it, right? For oneself and others, or to help. We really can only do it for ourselves, but we can help others to do that once we've transformed our own experience. So this is the intention, and we just set the intention. We call this kind of the motivation or intention. We come into an experience of that through reflection for a few minutes and then embodying that. And then we just enter our shamatha practice. We then choose an anchor for awareness, the breath, or looking at something with our gaze, or we could visualize the Buddha. In Buddhism, we do that. And we place the awareness on the present moment via that anchor. So again, I think all you are familiar with this through mindfulness practice. Again, mindfulness practice has been cherry-picked from shamatha, but now you see why shamatha is a little different, hopefully. And so then we engage in vigilance and gently bringing the attention back when we're distracted. So we're placing our attention and awareness on that anchor, and then we're bringing the mind back when we run away into our thinking mind. So then mindfulness of too much or too little effort. So this is actually the Buddhist practice of mindfulness, which mindfulness became a catch-all term in secular mindfulness, but really what it implies in Buddhism is a remembrance. So you're kind of, there's a part of the mind that's mindful of, are you present and with your anchor? But at the same time, it's also mindful of are we putting too much effort, too much stress into the practice or too little effort. And this is something we just work and we gain over time. It's not something I can like tell you how to do. You just have to practice, and you'll get more skilled at that. But that's what we typically call mindfulness. It's an aspect of awareness, but awareness is the main thing. Awareness means this quality of mind that's watching, that's observing our experience. And then we're also remedying the last bullet point. We're remedying obstacles to meditation as needed. So I kind of briefly talked about that. When we sense laxity, we remedy that. When we sense excitement, we remedy that. Okay, so I'm just going to stop the screen share for a moment. So let's practice a little bit just to get out of our heads. I've been talking a lot. So again, find a seat that is, suitable for meditation if you're not already there. If you want to stretch a little bit, just for a second, if you want to stand up, we've been sitting for a while. Just want to stand up, kind of move a little bit before practice. Go ahead and do that. And as we're doing that, just kind of starting to reflect. Okay, what does this intention mean to me right now? Again, maybe you just heard this word bodhicitta, and you're not a practicing Buddhist, so it's not something you're fully relating to right now. But what is the sense of compassion and love that I can bring in right now into my intention, which really changes why we meditate? Because we need calmness as a base, but if we're starting to reflect on our intention of warmth towards ourselves and others and compassion, it's not about becoming a good meditator. It's about using meditation to get to know our minds and emotions in a more healthy way, developing a healthier relationship with emotions, moving towards liberation and awakening, and doing this in a connective way, where it's not just about us, it's about others as well. But again, it's very tricky. Bodhicitta doesn't mean we become a savior. This gets really confused in the West. We're not becoming a savior. Simply through transforming ourselves, our light starts to transform the environment and world around us. This happens gradually for most of us. So with that intention, in whatever way you can connect with it, I'll kind of leave it without words right now. Just connect with your heart. Bring those words into an experience if you can. And at the same time as you're connecting with your heart space, you're connecting with the body. You're just relaxing into the body, maybe taking a few deep breaths. And again, this is just things that I do in my practice and with my students that I find helpful. We really need to relax and settle into the body. So what happens is we're not seeking relaxation the whole time we're practicing. We're actually seeking this quality of growing our awareness in the present moment, which really defines the essence of shamatha. And just starting to form our posture, also letting the shoulders sit back and down, natural curve in the spine. If you want to place this meditative mudra at your navel area in your lap, or the hands just simply on your knees. For a lot of people, adjusting the gaze is the trickiest thing in the beginning. The eyes half or fully open. Just allowing the gaze to be open like the ears are open. We're not staring at anything in particular. And just letting the breath enter the nose, exit the nose gently. And just start to connect with the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose, or the sensation of the breath at the abdomen as the chest and abdomen expand and contract. And just for ease of object, we're going to take the breath as our object, our anchor right now together. So just starting to become a little bit more effortful and direct in getting to know the breath, getting to know the feeling of the breath in the body. And then there's this quality of mind that's aware of that experience happening. So there's a sense of watching that experience as it's happening. And it's gentle, easeful, yet purposeful. And the practice is pretty simple when we're letting go of all the ideas of Buddhism and all this stuff. Just to sit with the awareness. And when we notice we've drifted off into thinking about the past and future, we recognize that with mindfulness and come back to the breath and awareness. It's the awareness that brings us back, mindfulness being a part of awareness. And we're just cultivating that gently. And so a successful practice here has nothing to do with becoming more relaxed or peaceful. Yet relaxation is helpful as a ground for our shamatha. It's very difficult to practice or grow our awareness if everything's all agitated. So I urge you, don't seek restfulness, seek awareness, and then apply remedies if your body needs to rest a little bit more. One remedy I really like, if you're feeling a lot of agitation or excitement, just really place your attention at the lower abdomen, being really deliberate that you're breathing into that lower abdomen, expanding the lower abdomen and contracting it. On a biological level or physiological level, this automatically actually induces the vagal nerve, which is the longest nerve in our body, the vagus nerve. And this helps to soothe our nervous system, to quote unquote relax it. So it's a great technique to do. And what it does is we understand we need something for the practice, but we're not centering that. That's not the purpose of the practice. The purpose is to cultivate awareness with the breath as our anchor, something to come back to when we become distracted. So I'm going to practice like this for a little while. I think you're all familiar with this, but we'll just do it together in case there's any questions. We'll practice for just about 10 minutes silently together. Well, I was going to say just one more thing. So success here has to do with, are we training in awareness or not? So there's no way to win that, you know? We might have had an incredibly challenging practice, having to recognize distraction 40, 50 times. We might have had to come back and it was a lot of work. But that I would define as successful because we're actually putting in the work in a relaxed, but, effortful way. And then we started to notice awareness versus non-awareness. That is good. That is beneficial for the shamatha. But if simply we just kind of set it, we're relaxed, and then we just space out or get a little sleepy or just start kind of daydreaming, and we don't put any effort into noticing that, we're not going to improve in the practice. So daydreaming is not bad. It's just we have to recognize that and come back. So we have to put the effort to recognize, but not over recognizing and not under recognizing, just the right amount for you right now. And this comes with time. It's like an art of balancing. It comes with practice. So just with love for yourself, letting go of perfectionism, letting go of I need to be a good meditator or meditate well, just put in your effort. And so we'll do that together. Just putting in a few more minutes of effort, in particular, really working with very subtle mindfulness. Am I lost in thoughts, or am I just aware, resting in the present moment? So resting here means like stabilized. If you're stabilized, great. Just sort of do whatever upkeep you need to continue to cultivate that. Upkeep means, well, maybe how much effort do you need? You need more, less? You'll see. If you're pushing too much, you'll get more thoughts, more agitation. If you're not effortful enough, there'll be more laxity. And my advice is don't fight your experience too much. Don't fight the thinking mind. Just notice it. That's enough, especially in the beginning. And for those of you with your eyes closed, just at the end here, just to experiment with some other methods for shamatha, how we hold the gaze. Just open the eyes, but don't look around the room. Just let the gaze rest in the space in front of you, just like the ears are open to sound, the eyes are open to sight, but we're not engaging in thoughts based off of what we see. You can notice thoughts, but don't produce new ones. You'll notice a little bit more of an open quality here. And we're not blocking the senses. This is more of a Mahayana style of shamatha. And from there, releasing the breath. And if you've managed to connect with awareness, just be aware with all the senses open. And we call this shamatha without support, meaning there's no anchor anymore. Let go of the anchor of the breath. And just awareness is awareness. No blocking, no suppressing. Anything can come, thoughts, sounds, smells, tastes, sensations, sights. But we're also not becoming them. We're not becoming distracted by them. Or we're noticing distraction. The moment we recognize awareness, we're back in the practice. So there's no anchor. Let's just do this for a minute together. Okay, now all the senses are open. The eyes should be open at this point. So when you start to look around the room a little bit, move the body, see if you can move from within awareness. So there's still awareness, there's still a present moment knowing happening, but yet you can perceive, even perceive kind of moving around, moving the eyes around. And so when we start to close the practice right now, it's not this big gap between the formal meditation session and the post meditation. We try to carry awareness as far as we can out into what we call the post meditation. This is how we start to bridge formal practice. Okay. Gracias. Thank you. So we have about 20 minutes left. What I thought, if it's okay with you, is just present briefly on Vipassana. We're not going to be able to go into a lot of it today. And then we'll just focus the most of the time on Q&A. So I'm going to share my screen again. moment. Okay, you can see me still, Alina? Can you hear me? See me? Oh, okay, Amelia. You can see me or no? Can you see the slide and everything's okay, Amelia? Great, just double checking, thanks. Okay, so just really briefly on Vipassana meditation, just more information, we won't have time to practice it. So like I said, it's known as insight meditation, or sometimes in the Mahayana tradition, we call it special insight meditation, meaning what distinguishes it is we can have insight into kind of the relative nature of something, like for instance, like insight into a certain kind of wood versus another kind of wood for making a table, right? Some kind of clarity around that. So special insight implies a deeper nature, the absolute nature of self and the world around us. So awakening and or Buddhahood cannot be attained solely through calm-abiding meditation. All afflictions and their seeds need to be severed from the root in order to attain full awakening. So realizing emptiness, or the word emptiness is actually shunyata in Sanskrit, and emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. I'm going to repeat this 3 times because often I have to still answer questions on this. The word emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. The word emptiness, which is a translation of shunyata, its literal translation is emptiness, but it doesn't mean nothingness. It's a term that we have to understand, right? It can't be literally taken. So realizing, we could also say like non-dual emptiness or absolute truth. We can also use those as words to describe emptiness. Through the practices of Vipassana is the way to cut the root of misperception that binds us to samsara. So Vipassana engages meditation on non-dual awareness and engages as many different kinds of methods for doing this. So the practice of shunyata or emptiness is Vipassana meditation. They're synonymous. So as an example, when we look at time, we can't find the past, it's already gone. We can't find the future, it hasn't happened yet. And we can't find the present. So this is something we have to experience. So we have to look at this through Vipassana meditation. So it's just a concept, right? So when we're talking about emptiness, we're not talking about non-existence. Time still appears. Like right now it's 1:10 Pacific time in the United States. So time still appears, but it's relative, right? It's relative to the perceiver. It's relative to where we are in the world. So if it was 1:10 and that existed absolutely, it would also be 1:10 p.m. for you. But that's not true because we can use time in different ways. So when we're saying time, you can't find time in the past, present, or future, we're not saying it doesn't exist completely. What we're saying is it doesn't exist independently. And that's what emptiness means. It means things do not, phenomena, the world, do not exist independently. So the problem is we have the habit of taking them independently. Like when we experience a strong reaction or belief, we take that to be real and true as it is. And this is the root cause of afflictive emotions that cause suffering. So it's going deeper here into the nature of reality. So going to that 4th bullet point, the world, everything in it is similar to a dream in that it all appears, but we can't find any kind of true existence. And this is, again, something that really needs to be studied, reflected on, and meditated on. And it can't really come, an immediate answer, it can't come on this. This is a very deep question and contemplation. Emptiness is nothing, yet everything. This means that all phenomena do not have any stable, enduring nature. Yet because of emptiness, everything is possible. So this is one of these things that could sound like a riddle, but the more we study and practice, we start to see this. Because when we're talking about non-duality, we're talking about something that's going beyond subject and object. We're talking about something that it neither exists nor doesn't not exist. So we're going beyond existence and non-existence. And this is something the conceptual mind just can't understand. So therefore, it has to be experienced through Vipassana meditation directly in a non-conceptual way. And that's what really we aim to do. And that starts to free us from the bonds of afflictive emotions and karma with the assistance of calm abiding meditation. So seeing the nature of reality is the cause of real happiness, freedom, and liberation from a Buddhist perspective. So we have various ways of practicing Vipassana through analyzing. We might reflect on the nature of a table, for instance. There's certain traditions, scholarly traditions of Buddhism that do that. We might use examples like the example of a dream, a mirage, or a reflection, and use those to reflect on emptiness. And then we have practices of direct experience, where we're actually watching with awareness the nature of the mind or the nature of our experience. So usually what we do is we use all of these in Vipassana practice in Tibetan Buddhism. Though in Theravada Buddhism, they tend to make primary the third one, direct experience. And then it depends on what style of Tibetan Buddhism they make something primary, right? And in the monastery, they do a lot of studies in Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of philosophical training and debate. So they're really taking advantage of the first one. And then later they'll go into the third one. So I think that's it. So that's kind of a brief presentation on Vipassana, but the essence of it is really that we need, in Buddhist meditation, we use these paths of both shamatha and Vipassana, and we need to engage both of these. And so a Buddhist practitioner will either train in shamatha first and then enter Vipassana, or in the tantric Buddhist tradition or the Vajrayana tradition, we kind of do both together. So there's many ways to engage this. So it's not like, it can be a little daunting at first, because when you see the Buddhist paths, you kind of read about Buddhism, and it sounds like people are talking about completely different things. They're not. It's just different traditions and lineages and different ways to kind of get there. But when you have enough wherewithal in your kind of understanding of Buddhism, you can really see all the paths of Buddhism engage some type of shamatha and some type of Vipassana. And also we could see shamatha is not just Buddhist. It's in common with a lot of spiritual traditions. And I would say there's a lot of spiritual traditions who have some kind of Vipassana practice. But what's very specific about Buddhism is this teaching on shunyata. This is very specific to Buddhism in the way they talk about it. So we could just open it up now. We got 10 or 15 minutes. And I apologize, there was a lot of information, but I really wanted to power pack this for you and, give as full a presentation as I could of Buddhism in a short amount of time. And also we could practice a little bit and get a taste of some of these things. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And even if you don't have a question, just talk to me, so I know, we're communicating something, right? And it's okay to just say, oh, I didn't get much. It was hard. And that's fine too. It gives me some feedback. But I hope you got at least something from it. So I think you could just unmute yourself. I see there's someone clicking there.
Hola Scott. Bueno, me encantó. Sentí que fue como mucha información, así que un poco consultar a ver si entendí los conceptos generales bien. Si no, voy a volver a mirar la clase. Me encantó, me pareció súper interesante, pero un gran desafío por lo menos para mí. Lo que yo entendí un poco fue que todos nacemos, bueno, libres de sufrimiento, libres de este como dualismo de sujeto-objeto, y después lo que no me terminaba de quedar claro es en ese dormir, que es como con nuestro karma por nuestros patrones de vida, eso es lo que no me terminaba de encerrar, de cuándo es que nos dormimos, o sea, o si son como como estas nobles verdades del dukkha, era como que me terminaba de confundir eso, que era como el karma lo que nos dormía, o sea, y entonces después iba armando yo a ver si seguía entendiendo. Si en realidad es, por ejemplo, después lo que sí entendía era que con la meditación lo que intentamos buscar es justamente ese dormir para despertarnos. Y entonces con el camino de la meditación sería con el yamata, con lo de, o sea, llegar como un estado más de calma, para luego con el vipassana hacer como una profundización. Sería un súper resumen de lo que entendí. ¿Entendí? ¿Voy por buen camino?
Really good, really good. Yeah, and I think, we can. Yeah, I can share a little bit
Muchas
more to kind.
gracias. Un montón. Gracias.
See, you're welcome. Yeah, de nada. But I think keep going, because this is kind of especially the first part of what you're saying, I'll say a little bit more, but again, it's like very deep things that are hard to conceptually answer. And then I'll say a little bit more about shamatha and vipassana. But generally, yeah, I think you kind of have got the structure. This is what's difficult to understand. So yes, the mind is birthless and deathless from a Buddhist perspective. The mind. But not the confused mind. The confused mind can end, right? Because we said it has a cause, afflictive emotions and karma. But the root of mind, we call the kind of the Buddha nature, because the Buddha nature is not a material thing. It's immaterial. It's mind. And this is what also moves from life to life. But moving from life to life is based on the confused mind, not the underlying Buddha nature mind. So this is what becomes tricky, because we kind of create, in language, we create this dualism or dichotomy, but actually in reality, it's a little bit different. But we have to experience that. So we're just using language now, which is hard to describe. So the body comes about via karma and delusion, meaning our human body now, even though it's a great vehicle to attain awakening, it also is produced via delusion. That's why we experience suffering within the body. Yet the mind, so the body has a birth due to karma and delusion, but the Buddha nature was never born, therefore it has no birth. So then it leads to this question that you asked. Well, when did we become asleep? When did we lose track of the Buddha nature, right? It's kind of what you're asking. When did we lose this? When did we become confused? And Buddhism says, we've been confused since beginningless time, which isn't really a satisfactory answer, because, it doesn't make sense. Because especially within Judeo-Christian cultures, we understand creation, beginning, end, this kind of thing. But Buddhism doesn't have a beginning, right? Because there is, when you see that time is also an illusion, there's no beginning or end. It's beyond beginning or end. So Buddha nature is outside of time, right? Yet right now, our Buddha nature is kind of trapped within the confusion on top of it. So it's experiencing time. So what we do in meditation is we separate out that confused mind from the Buddha nature. Now I'll make it very simple. And the paths of shamatha and vipassana are to separate out that confused mind from the Buddha nature. And the more we do that, we enter our real nature which is birthless and deathless. And this is very hard to understand from a material perspective, because it's very real when our body dies. It's very real when we lose family and friends when they die. We're not denying this, but the illusion goes very deep, and we start to experience something. So those of you who have taken plant medicine, you can experience this a little bit on plant medicine. Now, plant medicine isn't Buddhism. We don't advocate it in the Buddhist path. But if you've taken it, you can have this experience of being infinite and non-dual, and also deathless. So a little bit, it gives you a taste of kind of what our nature might be. But again, I'm not recommending that, just saying if you've had it already, because it's a context you might be able to understand. for those of you, because it's very popular nowadays. That's the reason I mention it. Ayahuasca, all these things. So anyways, nonetheless, in Buddhism, this is just our nature. It's not created, it's birthless, it's endless. But we are birthed, like this body births, but we are not just this body. So that's where we have to understand out of that context. And this body is produced by karma and delusion. So when we eliminate karma and delusion, we eliminate the body. And that's tricky because then people think, well, where do we go? You go everywhere. You're everything. So it's kind of tricky to answer this. But getting out of that, because this is big abstract questions. Yeah, shamatha, the path through shamatha and vipassana, we separate the confusion from the wisdom nature, the Buddha nature. And first, shamatha, it's not just to calm down, it's to actually train in meditative awareness. So the awareness stabilizes in the present moment. That's the more important thing. Calmness is like the foundation we need to stabilize the awareness. But it's the awareness becoming more stable that's the important thing. And once that can happen, there's more openness in the experience. And then when we look with vipassana, we look into the mind, we can connect with the Buddha nature. And we start to unravel this mess of the confused mind. So this is kind of how it works. But just essence-wise, Buddhism is about removing the confused mind from the experience. It's like, that's why they use the example of a dream. When we woke up this morning, we went to all kinds of places last night, all kinds of experiences. But when we woke up, none of that happened. But when we were there, it was like it was happening. And Buddhism uses this as an example. That's exactly what's happening right now. I'm a dreamlike being appearing to your dreamlike consciousness, teaching you dreamlike Buddhism. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, because there's something happening. But everyone's experience of this is different. So we could see it. We're all having our own dreamlike appearances, but they matter. In the dream, it matters. Like it matters right now what we do, how we act. We can still dreamlike die if we run into the road, because otherwise we become nihilists. So Buddhism is very specific. It's not nihilism, but we also have to counter our eternalism, meaning our clinging to materialism. So this is the path. So I don't know if that helped. Snati, I don't know if that helped, but a little bit more.
Y muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. And I think Marcia, you had something? She had her hand up. I don't know. You can just unmute yourself because I think we can't see all of your hands.
Hola, otra vez. Solo es un comentario. Okay. Cuando era niña, una de las cosas que yo le preguntaba a mi mamá era qué pasaba si éramos parte de un sueño y el que estaba soñando se despertaba. ¿Y qué iba a pasar conmigo? Bueno, ahora puedo como entender, y me generaba, realmente me generaba mucho miedo de mi propia existencia, ¿no? De que se despertara el que me estaba soñando. Bueno, nada, quería compartir eso porque me hizo recordar todo esto.
Wow, really beautiful. Now you have to fulfill your childhood direction. But don't worry. I mean, it's scary. I'll be honest. It's scary because we're letting go of everything we've known to be real. But when we work with that fear, we start to get courage in wanting to know reality, and we become kind of like passionate about that. But there is some fear to go through. So that's me too. I have fear. Yeah. Good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else, por favor? We got only a few minutes.
Hola.
Hola.
Muchas gracias por la charla, ha estado fantástica, realmente. Al comienzo de la charla de hoy, dijiste algo que a mí me llamó mucho la atención. Yo llevo estudiando budismo un tiempo, intentando estudiarlo. Y hay una parte que me llamó mucho la atención porque lo dijiste muy claro y es algo difícil de entender. Cuando dices que el problema de las personas hoy en nuestro mundo moderno es que creemos que nuestra realidad en realidad es la visión que tenemos de nuestra realidad. Por como lo entendí, tú escribes o nos describiste que en el budismo plantea que tenemos una visión y esa visión tiene que ver más como percibimos las creencias que tenemos, las ideas, nuestros pensamientos y cómo designamos las cosas y los objetos. Y ahí tú dices que el problema es que hoy creemos que esta visión, que finalmente es una experiencia de cosas que suceden, sentimos que es nuestra realidad. Entonces, desde ahí uno puede entender que de ahí surge esta idea de experimento algo y siento que me está pasando a mí, y luego de eso, eso se convierte un poco en mi sufrimiento porque me aferro o me apego, porque me identifico con esto que me sucede, que le sucede a mi cuerpo o que le sucede a mi mente. Entonces, cuando tú dices eso, y en el fondo nos dices que en realidad, nuestra realidad, lo que nosotros creemos que es nuestra realidad, simplemente es una visión. Y lo que uno hace en el budismo es cambiar una visión por otra visión. Es decir, entendiendo un poco, está esta naturaleza de Buda cubierta por, o esta pepita de oro cubierta por barro, ¿vale? Y nosotros nos identificamos y creemos que son barro, porque no sabemos que en realidad somos oro. Es decir, nuestra naturaleza de Buda siempre está debajo de esta ignorancia de creer que somos este cuerpo, estas experiencias, estas condiciones, lo que tengo, los que me rodean. Ahora, yo creo que quizás una de las cosas que a uno le asusta un poco en este camino de darse cuenta que uno no existe de la manera en que uno cree que existe, es quizás no entender cuál es tu verdadera naturaleza, cuál es la naturaleza de Buda, cuál es, qué es realmente esa naturaleza. Yo creo que ahí el ego, o este yo, que está identificado con muchas cosas, cuando uno empieza a tratar de como de entrar en esta vacuidad, de encontrar en un fenómeno o lo encuentro en el conjunto de las partes, o lo encuentro en sus partes, o fuera de sus partes, y nos damos cuenta que nada existe de manera independiente de todo lo demás, surge un poco esta cosa de quedarse un poco vacío. Es una sensación un poquito como a la vez de que te libera y de que uno se siente mucho más liviano cuando uno se desapega de algo, también hay como una pequeña incomodidad. Creo que a veces nos resulta difícil entender cuál es la naturaleza de Buda, porque Buda son muchas cosas y hay muchas designaciones culturalmente de que Buda representa esto u otro. En tu opinión, con tus años de estudio, de vida monástica y luego de profesor, ¿cuál es la naturaleza de Buda? ¿Cuál es esa naturaleza que realmente somos?
Chicos, estamos justo en la hora, tenemos que terminar porque no solamente está Scott y todos nosotros, sino que además tenemos a las traductoras. No sé, Scott, si puedes responder en un minuto y después ya terminamos, no habría más espacio para preguntas, así que queda del tintero nomás.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you so much. I mean, at least in the translation I heard, it was very, very, you obviously understand the Dharma well, so thank you. And you actually did a service for me. You gave an excellent summary and conclusion to the essence of what really we're talking about here. So thank you. I appreciate it. You took some weight off of my job, so thank you. And yeah, I would say there's not really a short answer to this, but I would say I would urge you to experience the Buddha nature via the path of shamatha and vipassana. and doing that within, you know, proper instruction with good teachers and all that. And the Buddha nature is something beyond concept. We talk a lot about it. Sometimes we call it the unification of emptiness and clarity, sometimes the unification of bliss and emptiness, sometimes the unification of compassion and emptiness. There's many ways to talk about this, but nonetheless, it has to be experienced because it's beyond concept. So that's what I would urge everyone to do, you know, properly through understanding and then going beyond understanding. Not just leave it there, and with a heart of compassion, with a heart of love, you know. So yeah, thank you.
Bueno, le damos las gracias a Scott por estar presente y habernos dado esta magnífica enseñanza, su amabilidad también. Nada, pues las puertas están abiertas para que puedan conversar con él, puedan estudiar, en fin, se abre el camino. Muy bien, pues chicos, les agradezco a todos y nos vemos ya la próxima. Le toca a Natalie, Yumi en la próxima sesión, así que quedan todos, y no solamente invitados, sino que los esperamos ahí con el corazón abierto. Muy bien, pues chicos, que estén muy bien y tengan buena tarde de lo que resta del sábado. Chao, chao.
Chao, gracias.
Gracias, everyone. Thank you.
Gracias. Excelente.
Gracias, Luciano. Gracias to the translators. Thank you.